Good morning. My name is Keith Todd. I'm with a company called Broadsight Systems, and we specialize in a lot of specialty products, customized products for the security industry and other industries. And I'm here to introduce Chris Heels, who's going to speak to you in a minute about the ACE program through Bosch. I'd like to, number one, give my appreciations, thanks to Chesapeake, Mid-Atlantic, and Bosch for putting on this event. It's a great thing. And we're going to share a lot of good information here, and hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Chris?
Thanks, Keith. I don't know if you've had a chance to go by and see the booth over there, but Keith's booth, they do some beautiful work, right? So if you're an architect, a consultant, or an engineer, they have got some great pieces that help in that area. So it's a little deceptive, the name of this presentation, and I know you guys have all been waiting for this presentation, right? But if I was to come up here and just talk about specifications and how they're going to change tomorrow, it'd be about a 10-minute conversation, right? Because really, I don't decide what that looks like. CSI does. And so we just conform to the CSI specification system, right? The master spec and the specification rules and kind of the concept that they put in place for building on, in our case, right, we're talking about Division 28. So that would be a really short conversation, and it would probably be a really dry conversation. So what I decided to do today is the Bosch system, how Bosch as a holistic organization works together on the behalf of security and security video. So we're an organization of over 400,000 employees. And of that, there's a large amount of those employees that are in engineering and innovation. And probably what's going through your mind right now, or some of you at least, is like, what does that have to do with an ACE program, architects, consultants, and engineers? Well, it has everything to do with it, because we derive all that innovation and engineering and have to go back out there and talk to the ACE community. And in this case, we call it architects, consultants, and engineers. So we've actually made a new acronym at Bosch. I know there's not very many of those, right, but we wanted to throw another acronym out there. So if you look at ACE or architects, consultants, and engineers against what we've always thought of as A&E, we wanted to bring those consultants into the fold, right? Include them in an acronym that made sense for Bosch. So when we start talking about cross-pollination, it's where an innovative, massive company like Bosch, who all of you, there isn't a person in this room that's not already using Bosch somewhere in their lives, right? Your car has Bosch parts in it. Pretty sure, because they say, and I don't know how accurate this is, but I would assume that it's fairly accurate, that there is a Bosch part in every car on the road today, at least one, right? And now that I've been working for Bosch, I'm seeing it all over my house, on my wipers. I mean, I see Bosch name, and now I'm buying the tools for a little bit less off, so hey, I'm happy about that. Although our dishwasher broke the other day, and my wife said, hey, you work for Bosch, let's go get a dishwasher. So I went on there and I was like, oh, I can buy a dishwasher for a percentage off. And then I saw the small print down there that you have to wait almost 9 months to get the dishwasher, right? That she wants. She wants that quiet one. So we're going to have to put that on hold. So evidently there's like one part that is in that supply chain issue in that dishwasher. Well, it's affecting all of us, right? Supply chain is affecting everything we do. But Bosch, the reason that I decided to look at it from a cross-pollination standpoint is that there are so many things happening at Bosch that actually funnels down to our security products. So our group, there's almost 60,000 people just in the innovation section within our organization in the United States. And of those, there are a ton of folks working on AI. AI is absolutely going to be one of the focal points for Bosch moving forward. The president of Bosch said that our sensor business, the IoT business, will, by 2025, everything will be AI, right? So we're going to be spending a lot of time, energy, and money and employees, adding employees to that AI initiative within the whole organization. So what does that do? Well, that funnels down all of that expertise, engineering, and innovation right down into our cameras, our security devices, our recording devices, and we get that overspill, if you will, from all of these other IoT devices. So what does that mean really? So if you go look at some of the autonomous driving that's going on, we're at the cutting edge or the front edge of that world. So we're out there building autonomous cars, building AI into those, redundant AI, and a lot of that is camera vision, right? So you have this camera vision vehicles out there spotting all of these different scenarios and all of these different things that are happening in IoT, but also in the vision of those cars as they're running around all over the place. I don't even, for one moment, espouse to say I know anything about that engineering, but I do know that we're getting the spillover of information and metadata coming back into security that we're able to use and to be able to make our cameras and our devices on the edge smarter. And there's a lot of companies that can't do that. So, this is another area, right? Machine vision. So important. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were talking about, hey, there's a huge pizza company that wants to make sure that there's, 18 slices of pepperoni on their pizza as it goes by. Right? That seems like a pretty simple concept for machine vision, right? But there are machine vision systems like this one where it's taking 3 or 4 or 5 cameras all redundantly looking at parts and pieces and making sure that these very small, minute pieces are doing what they're supposed to and they're being put together correctly. So what does that mean? We're using AI in that as well. We're actually learning not only what is supposed to be happening, but what happens when it doesn't go right. So we get that spillover again into our cameras and into our security devices on the edge. So I'm going to go back to vehicles for just a moment. It's not just the autonomous vehicle driving that we're getting that metadata from that we can use in security, but we're also getting a better understanding of how people use security in small areas. Right? So you walk up to the car and you look inside it. Well, that driver gets a notification on their smartphone that says, hey, somebody's near your car. So as that progresses and as we start getting more information from those vehicles that are out there with our cameras in it, they're making smaller cameras that are smarter, and the degree of definition in those smaller cameras is just dramatic today compared to even a couple of years ago. And we're getting that spillover and that kind of lens opportunity and that type of learning back into security. Not only our cameras, but other devices as well. So that whole IoT AI experience is happening at Bosch very quickly. And again, we're talking about edge devices, right? Even in the cars. So what really is AI today and what will it be tomorrow? And I'm not going to try to tell you where we're going with AI because that's not really my bailiwick. But I'll say that we're moving there really fast. I mean, if your CEO of your company is basically saying that you're going to be taking all of your devices on the edge and making them AI enabled, that's not just cameras, that's your fridge, right? I guess it'll, when we talk about predictive analytics, we're going to be able to tell you when you're going to be out of milk next, and you should go get some. Or, hey, just push this button and Amazon will just deliver it, right? So AI is not just the decisions that we're looking for to deal with risk. We're also trying to make life easier for people all the way around. If you look at Bosch holistically, every area of Bosch, we're trying to make it easier and make it simpler for people to live. We have, and I should have put one on here because it's quite funny. Bosch makes some of the funniest videos. If you go on YouTube and you put in there Bosch funny videos, right? I mean, that's kind of funny. That's what my kids would put in, right? But it's true. They make some of the funniest videos in not just in Germany, but here, about what they are trying to do with IoT to generally the world. And they're very well done. Our marketing team is fantastic. So as we go forward with this whole AI, IoT world experience, that arena is moving so quickly that a program that does interfaces, if you will, with the ACE community, the architects, consultants, and engineers, we have to be able to convey that information. We have to be able to put that message out there to that community in a way that they can keep up with where our products are going. A few years ago, I was just having this conversation with somebody just not even half an hour ago. It used to be that we would talk about cameras and what we're trying to do to mitigate risk with the camera, right? And it's still, to some degree, it's still that way. But now with analytics, we're opening up a whole new world. We're not the only ones with analytics out there, but we are at the forefront of some very powerful analytics on the edge. And the ability to expand that into your imagination. So basically, if you can come up with it, we're going to try to do it, right? And some people, even at this group in this meeting here, I've already had a couple discussions where people have come up with some kind of interesting scenarios in that AI world where we can start learning. And some of those things are going to be at the high level of, we're going to bring it out next year. Some of those are going to be at the low level, and they're going to be brought out in a couple years. But for the most part, these cameras already do some amazing things. So it's going to change the way a program like this works. It's going to change how you, as architects, consultants, and engineers, look at how you're going to mitigate risk in the future, right? So how am I mitigating risk? How have I been mitigating risk thus far? Well, we're just figuring out, cost versus what we're trying, the golden jewels, right? What we're trying to secure. But analytics are going to allow us to do that for a lot less money. So now one camera can do what 2 or 3 cameras did not even 4 or 5 years ago. And we're going to see more and more of that because as the camera gets smarter, you're giving actionable information back to your security operations center, to the people that consume that information. So here's where we are today. And we believe that AI is going to be, and I'm going to go back to the vehicles, these autonomous vehicles, they have to be a better driver than us. The AI has to be smarter in its vision than we are, because it has to take everything that's happening out there and learn from it. We do that as human beings. At 16 years old, I was not as good a driver as I am today. I'm pretty sure that's true. And I think I have a vehicle record that kind of goes with that. So my kids, I tell them, don't drive in snowstorms, right? With the two-wheel drive, rear axle two-wheel drive car. Don't do it. Because they're not ready to go out there and drive in that kind of conditions, not having experienced anything. But your autonomous vehicle, the idea of the autonomous vehicle is that it's ready when you buy it to go out on the road, because we've had so much experience with other autonomous vehicles out there. And that's that metadata coming back from all of those autonomous vehicles out there. We're not just learning from one vehicle right off the showroom. It's not learning as it drives off from the dealership. It's learning from all those vehicles that were out there before it. So let's just equate that to security and IoT devices, and in this case, our sensors, right? When we start talking about cameras, our cameras are learning from each other. They're not necessarily talking to each other, but they're learning, and that metadata is getting transferred. Where that goes, we have an option for that, but it might go into a third-party system, right? Another partner's VMS system. And for actionable information after the fact. Or it might go into an AI server somewhere for a third party. But what I'm here to tell you today is that our cameras now are extremely powerful just as they are. And we're looking at the next generation of cameras to be smarter than the ones we're using today. The AI that you can do in a camera currently, and the learning that's going on in that camera, is pretty substantial. I would probably be amiss to say that we're the only ones doing this. I'm sure somebody else is, but not that I know of on the edge with so much analytic power. And some of our cameras have the ability to pull in third party. If you pull a mic up here, you can bring in some of the third party information, the radar information, that sort of thing, into the camera and start playing with that analytic within the camera itself. So there's some real brains in some of these cameras. But you can see here the concept is that all these cameras working together and passing information, that metadata information, that GPS information of a person going by, that's amazing that we can GPS that person and follow that GPS coordinate and catch it on another camera and keep on following it. Soon you'll be able to do that with colors. You'll be able to do that with, and again, I'm probably going a little bit beyond where we are today, but we should be able to say if it's a man or a woman or a child, or, right? So all of these things are going to be in play. And pretty soon you'll be able to follow them through a multitude of cameras because of that metadata that's being shared. So today, as a program, Bosch is looking at the things that make up an ACE deliverable product. In other words, my work product is the tools and the help to the consultants and the architects and the engineers that they need to be able to go out and talk about not only our physical product, but what does it do? How does it deliver risk mitigation? That's really the conversation, because they're just, at the end of the day, they're sensors, right? They're like any other sensor. However, now we're getting actionable information from those sensors, and we can make determinations much quicker than just having a camera there that after the fact we can deliver to law enforcement or whoever needs the information to make a decision after the fact and then take action. So we're trying to be at the forefront of risk mitigation rather than reactive risk mitigation. And that changes the discussion that I'm going to have with the ACE community, right? Now we're going to talk about risk. But we have to have these things, right? We have to have BIM models, because now today I don't want to just see where my camera is placed, but I want to see my room with the camera in place and where it's looking and how it's going to look on my beautiful facade, right? So architects tend to never want to put a camera up in the first place, right? Security is the last thing they're thinking about. Whereas when you talk about security consultants, their whole focus is on how do I mitigate that risk for my customer, right? So they want to have an answer that isn't just a sensor, but has function. So we want to be at the leading edge of that function. We want to be at a point where we're working with our architect, consultant community and engineering community to have basically a common picture of how they can mitigate that risk better using our sensors. So specifications, which is I think what we put on the original discussion for this group, is really an interesting point for us, because our specifications come out of Germany, and we're now converting our whole library to CSI, and everything's going to be in a CSI format and a master format. And then the CAD files, our CAD files are up to date and work really well. And then now we're introducing Bluebeam. I think Bluebeam is, for most of us, is a really nice system to be able to drop icons on and share information back and forth between groups. And we've come up with a very professional, really easy to use Bluebeam tool chest. Anybody familiar with Bluebeam? Everybody familiar with Bluebeam? All right. So this is we think this is going to be a very helpful future tool. And then, of course, we have dedicated business development managers regionally that you can call in and work with at any time. But that's today. That's our current state. Right? At some point here very, very soon, and of course I'm painting with a very broad brush here, but for the most part, we need to go out there and talk about AI, because at the end of the day, again, we can have a device, but it's only as good as what it's going to actually do for us. I don't know if any of you were around for back in 2000, but there was, the first IP camera was basically a lens stuck on a print server, right? And that was it. And I remember seeing this little goldfish swimming around, right? And every once in a while you'd see the goldfish move. It was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Well, that's kind of how I looked at cameras now, because the analytics are the AI now is the conversation. It's not about the cameras. Cameras are somewhat of a commodity of sorts. It's what the camera gives us that's important. That's what enables us to actually make decisions. The days of watching a bunch of screens is coming to an end. Security operations centers are going to be there to take action, not to react to things that they may or may not see. Technology is rapidly changing. I mean, it's changing so fast, it's hard to keep up with. If you go out on the internet and you put in pretty much any kind of technology, you're going to get just a myriad of different concepts, ideas, and motivations as companies move forward with technology. Well, Bosch is putting billions, with a B, into that technology. And it's happening so rapidly that we were just talking about cross-pollination. Sometimes we don't even know what's happening in, some other country and what they're doing with AI and how we can start entertaining and working with that in the security side of the house. And that can make huge leaps within our own company. We have to share this. We got to get out there and talk about this. And we got to talk about it with everybody from the consultancy engineers, the folks that are out there actually installing, and talk about that message and how we can help mitigate that risk. And in this program, that's really, our next couple of years is going to be just banging on people's doors and talking about how AI is changing the face of security as a whole. And then we have to be able to bring tools and bring the newest tools, which now I'm going to go into maybe that CSI specification a little bit deeper. There are some tools out there now that allow us to start duplicating information a lot faster and be able to take specifications and lay into a specification right from a group that's putting together the concept. In other words, we're able to use AI even in the documents that we're developing. And we're pretty early in that area as well, but that's something that's coming. I know 3 companies right now that are working specifically on CSI specifications and making it just drag and drop easy to pull and deliver specification information really, really quickly.
On the subject of the CSI spec, and what you just said, if you might answer it, is how current are the specs in terms of the compute on the AI side, on the hardware side, as well as the desired outcomes?
Yeah, and you're talking about from Bosch standpoint or just in general? Okay. I'll start with Bosch. Okay, so we're at kind of the infancy of what we're trying to do with CSI specs within Bosch, which kind of leads us down the path of that next part of that question. Overall, again, CSI decides what's going to be in a spec, but they're not deciding how you get there. So the technology to get there is changing very rapidly. And so as you're looking at a CSI specification, a master spec, for instance, on a particular sensor device, currently that AI information isn't necessarily in there, and they're trying to figure out, CSI is trying to figure out, where does that fit? And it's interesting because if you look at the software for a particular device, I'm not going to specify or talk about one of ours. I'm going to talk more generically and say, when you're looking at a device, the software is in a different division than the device. So we may see that same thing happening with AI, but the CSI association, the group, has not actually thrown down the gauntlet on where that's going to be. So currently you can throw those analytics into Division 28 with the device. However, in the very near future that may change. Does that answer that question? Yes, sir.
I have a question. I want to know how cognitive intelligence and intelligent algorithms play.
It's an interesting question. So there is an interesting development within our cameras where other third-party apps can be utilized in the actual physical product. So over in the other side there's a company, and I'm trying to remember the name of that, Matt, that has the apps that work with our cameras. Yeah. They have a whole library of apps that work with the cameras. So if, for instance, we don't make a very specific analytic to do a very specific thing, they have a library of apps that you can put into the cameras that will actually run that specific analytic. So now you've opened up a whole new world, right? Because if you're a third-party developer, you can develop a very specific analytic, and Bosch cameras can deliver that analytic into your security, your holistic security program. So it could be across a bunch of cameras doing a very specific analytic. Yes, sir. Well, okay, so that's a two-parter, really. And this is a little more general, but how many of you have seen really good video come out of a little store like a 7-Eleven? Like a couple people. But for the most part, when we watch the news and something happens in a 7-Eleven, the technology is probably, at least 3, 4, or 5 years old, right? Not every, and this is not every scenario, right? Because they're getting better and better. But for the most part, the video is grainy. It's, hard to see. They capture very little. Those guys, it's very difficult to stop somebody that's come up with a really good plan to steal something, right? We all know that the mitigation of the risk is only as good as the amount of money you've put in for the devices to stop the theft. Every safe, if you read the back of a safe, it tells you how long and what tools it takes to break into the safe. I mean, it's telling you how to do it. Because they know that we're trying to slow down the process of the theft. If somebody has those tools and that time, they're going to get into that safe. Just going to happen. It's the other layers of security that we put in place to slow down and to stop them from getting into it. So when you take a very A, determined, B, very well-planned group that wants to steal an ATM, that seems like a really good way to do it. Even though there's a camera there, evidently, maybe it was during COVID and they all had masks on, who knows. But the second part of this is that I know, at least, because I've dealt with them, they have cameras in their ATMs. And they are connected to an off-site location. So when an ATM is chained up on the truck and somebody pulls it out the front door, then they can actually see who was in that screen. Right? And again, we're talking about doing something after the fact. And I don't know that any analytics would have helped that situation. Maybe you say, this camera is watching the ATM, and if that ATM moves or is no longer there, then somebody's alerted, right? But how many of those get taken? Because that's the risk conversation. That's really, right, the teeter-totter. How many of those are taken a year? And then they just say, well, how much is in there? And how much are we going to spend to mitigate that possibility? And that's the risk conversation. And I could speak for an hour just on, the holistic concept of risk in a major organization. Yes, sir.
The list of apps that are available to you, is that also available in an open API or an SDK kit that you can then send to an end user and allow them to develop whatever they need to develop?
I knew I was going to get a question that I have no clue. Matt? Okay, so
Is it an open API for the software side of the camera? Is there an SDK kit for people to use themselves?
So there's two different types of cameras in the Bosch world. There's our wide-ranging list of available part numbers. Then there's a family called NTOPs. So in the wide range of cameras, yes, there's an open SDK API capability. And then the NTOPs platform, which Chris alluded to earlier, is that Athena app store. So you have a lot of different ways to integrate and accomplish a specific task. You know, if you're counting cars or people, sure, that's pretty standard, right? Whether you're Bosch or somebody else. But if you want to know who has a hard hat and a reflective vessel before they enter a workspace, that's pretty specific, right?
Yeah.
So really it comes down to speaking with the team and say, all right, what's the best plan? And we may say we don't have the right plan, or we might say we did it, right? But there's a lot of different ways to integrate and customize.
In the second part of that, with the CSI community, are you going to be having an ethics category in regards to AI and some of the data?
wow, that's a great question. So that's a loaded question, right? Because where does that line come and go? In
Legality and ethics in regards to AI, and there's huge
Yeah.
community that talks about it. I just don't know if you have language that's being compliant.
and I think you're going to find that language in specific applications, and what Matt said is so true. When you start talking about those apps that are third party, they're going to have
That's what I kind of referred the question back to, is that they must go through some sort of committee to look at these apps' availability on things.
and it's that risk appetite again, right? How much are we going to?
What is the use case?
What is the use case? Right.
End result.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll add to that. They do have a menu, right? Using the platform and NTOPs on the Bosch side as far as the hardware. There's a menu of things that these apps can do.
Right.
And you can communicate directly with those app developers on the website, as a portal.
Right.
And say, well, and I don't know if you had a chance to talk to Andrew, but please go over that, because he had one where they were detecting fire, right? Like a normal warehouse fire application, to catch it before the smoke detectors went on. And somebody saw that and said, wait a second, we're in the oil and gas business, and we have these flames at the top of if anybody's oil and gas, I'm going to say it all wrong, but we have these flames at the top of the smokestacks that burn off whatever. If the flame goes out, they get a fee. And so the app developer said, well, that's easy enough, we'll reverse it and just look for when the fire isn't there. So you can take their 100 app options and customize it
To your needs.
to your specific need and have exactly what you want.
Well, I'm talking about a use case. Every garbage dump in the United States has those same flame plumbing, lack of a better term, where they need to make sure those flames are running all the time. And so there's an opportunity right there. But again, that's kind of out of the security realm. Does that answer the question? Yeah. I think you go, the software agreement, right? You're gonna go down there, the one nobody ever reads, and we go down and click yes. You might want, if you read that, it probably has some of that verbiage in it.
No, it does. And Bosch has such a wide variety of products in healthcare and other things. I think that there's some compliance in collecting data from a lot of different areas, and what the end result of that could be.
Probably at least once a month, we do a Teams conversation with the legal group on what is and isn't, right? I can't remember any of it, but hey, they used a lot of words I don't even know. So I'm going to leave you with this, right? We have to be as good as our products. Our products are bulletproof. They're great. They work very, very well, right? Our out-of-the-box failures are almost nil. We have supply chain. We have cameras available, right? Some of the other companies that are out there aren't able to keep that supply chain moving right now, and we have that availability. So that's the first thing I'll say, and that's the physical plant, right? But we have to be as good as our products, and so as we move forward, we got to keep up with this technology and make sure that we're conveying that information out to you so that you're able to put that into play. Because the conversation with your end users and your customers is changing, and it's changing very rapidly. What's coming is pretty amazing, and it's because of all of that cross-pollination within Bosch. And I think you'll find us in the very near future very much at the forefront of helping you mitigate risk through AI.